Uh, Hey everyone, so yeah, we're gonna talk about DeFi security and stuff. Hope during the panel nothing gets hacked, or we might have to stop and get into a war room. Let's start with some introduction. Hi, I'm Sarang. I used to do engineering at Sushi Shop before. Now I just help and advise other apps.
Hey folks, I'm Mudit Gupta. I lead security and smart contracts at Polygon.
I'm Omar Ganiev. I'm CEO and co-founder of Decurity.
Hello. Okay. I'm Preetam. I'm co-founder at Quill Audits. My bad. I'm Preetam. I'm co-founder of Quill Audits. We are also a blockchain security company.
And I'm Valentin. I'm a researcher at Consensus Diligence and core member of CRIT-DAO.
Yeah, awesome. So let's get started with some questions. So one of the questions that I had, like there are a lot of attacks which happened in last year, like with Euler and like with Nomad, which happened after the audit, right? So they had a very well audited code, 6-7 times audited, flaunting on Twitter always, and they changed some code which they deployed, which got hacked, right? So what do you guys think about it? Like, should auditors have some kind of, like a dashboard or something which says that, no, now this, like this code base is not audited by us anymore? Because for a user, what we see is we can't always, like, no user can just directly go and check the commit hash, right? Because there might be some other changes as well. So how would you guys as an auditor, like, in the space of security would like to address this problem where, protocols after they've gone through the audit, they need like some kind of checks to make sure it's the same code.
Yeah, I have something to say, I think. Well, there is one obvious problem that we don't have a common standard for sharing the audit results. So there are PDFs, there are some portals, there are markdown files, but there is no really a standard where we could share that these particular lines of code have been audited. So that's a very big problem. But I think there is another problem because sometimes the code has been audited and it still has been exploited. For example, in the Kyberswap case, there was a bug bounty report before that, which was a similar bug similar to the one that has been exploited. So I think that whenever some new information has been gained about the security of smart contract, this changes the assumptions. Like there were like maybe 50 audits, but then there was a bug report. I think this bug report invalidates the assumptions about the security and safety of this protocol. And now we have to do another round of audit considering this new information. So this I'm not sure if this has been done in that case, and I think it has to be done. So this is another problem we have, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So funny enough, before working in blockchain, I've worked for some time in the banking industry, and I think this problem of like information sharing within cybersecurity is actually not something that only exists in blockchain. So it's also a problem in other industries. And I think that like in blockchain, we're already like better than like in many other industries. I think there is an open proposal about registering like audits on-chain, like having some kind of on-chain representation of audits. I don't know where exactly this proposal is standing right now. I've looked at it like a few months ago, and I think like it was really interesting, and I think it could be like one of the way to actually solve the problem like you were talking about, right? I mean, it won't solve the problem of like bugs that still exist in the code after an audit, but actually it can at least address protocols that are updated, for instance, after an audit and users not knowing about it, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a bit of contrary view that I believe audits should not be used as marketing material. So at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter if this has been audited or not, because no audit can guarantee 100% security. So I would rather just have like users need to trust the team to properly manage risk anyway. And if we can educate users to do that, then it's fine. Audit becomes just one part of due diligence. 99% of the code you guys or anyone is auditing is ruggable by bad parameters or governance or any other way anyway. So like the whole idea of audits being used as a like a security certificate is just not good.
Interesting. For me, I think we have worked with so many clients, and I have seen so many cases like after the like hack or anything, these like, protocols like always blame you as an auditor, you guys missed it, right? And while doing the investigation, we have so many cases, after the delivery of the report, these guys did some changes and then gone into some hacks, right? And this is also one main thing. And the second that we have seen is that currently there is no proper incident response team if any hack is going on, and if we feel, there is, like just assume there was some hack was going on in some Viper language or anything, right? But there is again so much protocols using that, like just assume the Open Zeppelin library or any library, and these developers also like facing that hack, but currently they are not getting any notification. Like in Web2 world, the GitHub is sending notification, upgrade your smart contract, stop your smart contract, right? So these two systems are not currently in touch, like the monitoring part and your code is not touch. Like just when any hack happened in DeFi protocol, but there are other DeFi protocol, they should get any notification, upgrade, pose any smart contracts, and I think we need to work on this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was my second question. Like, what does the state of monitoring looks like and why it sucks so much? Because as a dev, for me, it's very difficult, and most of the times I have to write my custom code to see, like how my contracts and everything is doing. There are some people in this space who have done some good work. Like Layer Zero had like pre-crime, which lets you test invariant if after the bridge, if that matches, if it doesn't, you can just stop it. But like that's just like top 0.1%. Like, what about the rest 99.9% has most of the funds, right?
Okay. Okay, I think, so what do you see, like, I was reading or was listening to one podcast last year, I think last year, around 99% of the projects is not using monitoring system, right? Or even like if some 1% is using, or they are getting the notification or they are thinking to take any action after like 1-2 hours, right? So currently these kind of systems are missing, and I was in like talk with the quick swap guys, and they are saying we are integrating one monitoring stuff, but we are not really happy with the monitoring stuff. I was like, why you guys are not happy? We are just doing it for the marketing purpose, right? Like just assume we guys had any bug in the monitoring system, how we are going to take action. There is currently no process, like they have a proper DAO and everything, right? Like just assume the monitoring system identified any hack in the process, what's going to be, like how the DAO is going to approve, what the things are going to do, the hacker can do any suspicious thing, right? I think these kind of things are missing, and that's why these protocols are not using. But I think monitoring is so much important. Now your money is locked in smart contract, right? And we need it.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to sell monitoring to a project because we have a monitoring product and we talk to the projects, and they always have concerns about the false positives and the reaction. It's very hard for them because it's basically their whole business can be halted by an alert, and they're not sure if that alert will be really useful. So we can see that the asset management funds, the hedge funds, and the traders see much more value in monitoring than the projects. And it's obvious because they allocate assets in multiple DeFi protocols, like 20 or 30 or 50. And so there is a very big chance that at least one of them will get hacked. And so it can bring value to them.
I mean, like, my question is also directed towards, let's say, peg sheet alerts, right? There have been hacks, so peg sheet tweets something, and the hack is still ongoing, right? And the team has no clue. There have been multiple examples of that. Like, I think one was Axie, right? I think they knew after a few days, right? So I do realize, like, false positive might be, like, one concerns for people, but it's still an agreeable risk, in my opinion, than, like, having a true positive in that case and not being able to do anything, right?
Honestly, I'll add there. I think the problem is like the teams in DeFi are still, or in crypto in general, are still very immature. The mature teams have monitoring set up already. Like, for example, most of these exchanges, Coinbase has like 200 people in their security and compliance team. And if you come on the other side, even the big DeFi protocols have nobody. Like Arbitrum, as far as I know, has nobody leading security. Like it's one of the biggest projects out there. Polygon, we have around 10 people now. I set up the team. Optimism has one, I think. So it's still very immature. And these are like the infrastructure teams. If you go to DeFi protocols, like even the biggest ones have nobody. Lido, for example, probably the biggest by TVL, was hiring for one. I don't know if they ever closed that hire, but nobody has the right person who can make these calls. It's not that these DeFi teams don't want security and monitoring and something. They just don't have the right person who knows the value behind monitoring and so on. So I think we need to solve that first. Like if they can get the right people in, then all of this would automatically get set up. Right now, honestly, like the biggest consumers and the most advanced monitoring stack I've seen is with a group of DJ traders, and all they do is like they monitor a protocol. As soon as they see something, they short it for just a few minutes, and then they close it. And they have been successful for it, and they have direct like monetary reason to advance their monitoring. So they are doing great. Like they have probably the best monitoring stack I've seen, even better than our own stack. And they are gray hats in the sense like if the token doesn't drop in 5 minutes, then they let the team know, hey, something is wrong. Can you spread the news? Something is wrong. So to just close the position. So it's a very weird interaction, but the teams themselves need to see the value for monitoring, and then they will implement it.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think it's not an easy problem. But I think to be, let's say, take the optimistic side, it took years in Web2 also companies for Web2 companies to understand the value of security. Like if you think about fuzzing, for instance, now like every big company is actually using it, but it took them years to actually use it, right? Because the products were not good enough, you had to build them. So I think right now, like, I mean, we're not there yet, as you mentioned, but I feel that people already are kind of starting to understand the importance of like security in depth, basically, as we call it. And so I feel it's going to take some time, but like as the products just mature, I'm thinking right now about like Tenderly, for instance, or like those kind of products that really have like are some kind of like security products, but have like great UX too. So it makes them like really easy to use. And I feel these products are really gonna help, I hope at least, so that like DeFi protocols slowly adopt them and kind of start to implement those systems in production. And as you mentioned, like having a monitoring system with like a proper incident response like process is not really useful. So it has to go like hand in hand. But I'm sure we're gonna get there at some point.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you guys think about how much of the horizon of auditing has been expanded? Because back then you had one Solidity code base on Ethereum, and that's it, right? Or probably like two other chains, and you just have to audit that. But now people just want thousands of millions of chains, right? And probably even devs want to go there with the same code base, but they all have something different, right? They might have some other feature that might break into the code, right? And not just that, now you have multiple languages where people code in, right? Like you have like Solidity, Viper, Fay, and like a bunch of them, right? And that might lead to more compiler bugs, right? So how do you guys look at this when you kind of audit? Do you guys have like a checklist which says, okay, this would work in this? Because in most of the audit reports, I don't see them saying that, like it works for what? Because if it works for general EVM and the team deploys it on some other EVM, most people, even though we don't have to look at audits as like the final thing, but most people do, right? Like including us half of the time. So like how do we do it? Like should auditors also include for the chains that they might have audited and the versions that they have used in this?
I think I have a quite practical point here. The recurring problem that we've seen in the EVM forks, or not even forks, but EVM implementations that have some features different from the native EVM, is that the testing toolkits don't necessarily support those features, and people have to mock them in the test code. and then over time those mocks get different from the actual implementation. And when you run tests, you see that the tests are passing, but in reality the mocks are passing, and the real code that will be deployed is different, and there are errors in that code. So this is a really practical thing that I would advise looking into when you're reviewing the code base on such chain. You have to diff the mocks with the actual implementation and look carefully at the mocked precompiles in the test code.
This is why straying away from actual EVM implementation is very dangerous for these chains. Some of the features are very innocent and can be added, but some are just not worth the risk. Example would be XDAI/Gnosis chain used to have callback in their transfer functions. So if you were creating default tokens on the XDAI chain, it will have a callback function that allows for reentrancy bugs. And it went unnoticed for 3 years or something, and then someone started exploiting literally everything on Gnosis chain. In Gnosis chain's defense, they saw an opportunity to add a feature, and they added it, but they didn't think about the security complications it might cause, and the developers never knew it might be an issue, and that caused a bunch of problems. Similarly, in the early days of ZK Sync, it didn't support the native transfer function. Yes. So lots of protocols that just forked the code from Ethereum, deployed there, lost money, or had their funds stuck and something like that. So if anyone is diverging from EVM in a way that might have security implications, please don't, or at least make it super clear to all of the developers that are building on it that, hey, be careful of this foot gun, you might shoot yourself.
Okay, so talking about the same thing, now that what's hot currently, everyone is building new chains. I'm talking to everyone, they're just building a new chain, maybe this is forking the EVM. And the same scene I think we have seen back in 2021, everyone was forking the project from Ethereum to the Binance, and there was so many hacks and scams during the 2021 period, right? And even Binance, the BNB chain did that tweet, please, don't just copy paste the code and just change some variables. And those old projects, DeFi projects, was getting hacked, right? I think same thing is not happening, but every as a developer or as an auditor, we need to understand how these chains are working, the architecture, the consensus, the compilers, everything we need to understand. Even I used to be auditor, but I'm not an auditor currently, personally, but I can see my auditors is the code is working fine on one chain and deploying on other chain, and they keep getting the code is not working right. So need to understand the I think the architecture and compilers, how things are working. And now these chains are interconnected, as you told, right? One is running on maybe Aptos, one is running on EVM. Need to have deep understanding of all the language that we're building on. Again, we don't need audit on the I think Aptos Mool language. Still need to understand how these things are working.
Yeah. I feel again that's a difficult problem to address, and that's a core problem of open source software, I would say. So, as you mentioned, it's very easy to fork code without precisely understanding what it is doing, and it already caused actually many hacks because you can change a single line, but if you don't precisely understand what this line is actually doing, then of course it might create side effects that can have critical consequences. So I think that's precisely what I was saying before. When you're interacting with the protocol, reusing code, you have to make sure, developers have to make sure that they precisely understand the intention of the system, the specifications, the design, everything. And of course, there are always going to be some people that just go for an audit, deploy on another chain, and they think it's fine, but it's not. Again, we're in the same loop of it's partly a responsibility, I feel, of the user to check that proper audits have been done, etc. But yeah, I don't have a miracle solution for that for now.
Cool. So I had a couple more questions, but I think we've run out of time, so I'm just going to ask one last. In the last year, or in the current year, or whatever previous years we have had, what was your favorite smart contract exploit which happened, did you think like, if you would be proud if you would have done it, probably as a white hat, I hope, So what was your favorite like bug that you discovered, or probably like somebody in your team or somebody that you know of discovered, and you thought like, oh, this guy might be a genius to discover that?
Okay, I think we discovered very interesting, was not a bug, but again, as we keep saying, don't trust anyone in Web3, even your developer, right? So we was working with the one company, and initially during 2017-18, there was no import OpenZeppelin. They were just copy pasting the OpenZeppelin code, and then this one thing. What this developer was doing, after the audit report, he was just checking, changing the code in the OpenZeppelin, the transfer function, right? Like the logic there, and with the client just deployed the code, he raised some money, and then able to figure out there was some hack around it. The older, developer gone with the money. Then we did some analysis, and then we able to figure out like around 15-20 projects same. So guy was a freelancer, and he did the scams with around 15-20 projects, right? So the developers is also doing these kind of hacks and scams. It's so very interesting. Like he gone with so much money out of it.
It's interesting. What about you?
One super interesting one was, I think last year or last to last year, Avi's Mango Market hack, because that was not just an on-chain hack. He manipulated the price on FTX, if I remember correctly, and then used that to exploit on-chain. So all of these audits that we had wouldn't have caught that bug. Like there was nothing wrong with the code per se. It was just the configuration and risk management that went wrong, which basically shows like you need a lot more than just code audits.
I think I'd speak for many that one of the most beautiful hacks was Kyber swap hack, which was a beautifully designed arithmetic manipulation, and it was in the code, which was bug hunted, it was audited, and still someone managed to do this.
Yeah, I actually wanted to mention the same hack, but maybe to mention something different. I've recently worked on a lot of like off-chain stuff, and an interesting, I mean, it wasn't hacked because we caught the bug, but like you could connect a wallet basically to any website, and it would actually sign a transaction without actually prompting the user to sign it. And I feel that was like kind of interesting because they didn't think about that edge case, funny enough. But yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. So does anybody from the audience have any specific questions? No, then I think that's it. Thanks for the panel, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.